Fabio, thanks for joining me. You do so after your 10th professional victory, your ninth successive stoppage. Richard Lartey, he talked the talk. He certainly walked the ring walk, but he lasted just 4 minutes in there. Was it a bit of an easier night than you'd expected?
Yeah, of course, much easier than I expected. And if I'm honest, much easier than I wanted, really. Because it's hard, isn't it? Because as good as the performance was, and I did well and whatever else, I understand that it's good for me now, and it's a good statement. It's good for like the knockout reel and whatever else. But for the longevity of my career, it's not ideal because I need to be getting into those later rounds at least more regularly, and just further down the line, really, just in more and more fights, just testing myself a bit more and just kind of, like I was saying in the build and stuff, ticking some different boxes, answering a few different questions and stuff. So the later that comes in my career, the less ideal it becomes. But overall, I'm happy.
I'm sure you have great sparring, but I guess there is a difference between doing 10, 12 rounds or whatever you do in sparring and then doing it on fight night. You just want that experience of what it's like to be taken into the later rounds.
Yeah, of course. There's a big difference between sparring and stuff, and the pace of sparring is sometimes different, and you're mixing it up in sparring between. Sometimes your sparring partners, they're just sparring partners. They're not always in the best of shape or best of condition. They can't always compete at their best level. So it's not all the same compared to one fight night where you get a well-conditioned athlete who's been preparing for a while to come in and do a job. That it leaves you with different variables. So like I say, that's why it's more ideal to kind of get those questions answered earlier on. Just know how it feels in yourself and in your body to be in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever round later on, and you know how to deal with it now. You know how to manage your breathing and everything else. But it will come when it comes, I guess.
You've had a few stoppages, as I mentioned. Did it feel when you connected, at least with that left hook, did it feel like a good punch? Did you feel like a punch that was going to end the way it did, or did his reaction maybe surprise you a bit?
No, it felt. I knew it was coming. The punches themselves felt nice, but even before that, I stuck a nice stiff, strong jab in there that I watched him. I watched one in his face and two of his leg go a little bit, and I just saw in his face that he was a bit like, that's not. I could see it's a little cues and things you pick up on as you box and as you spar and stuff that you see in people's faces when they do well enough to hide it overall, but there's little cues and whatever else you can pick up on. So hence why I followed that stiff jab that hurt him a bit with another one just to set it again and then teed it off with the left and the right.
Some people have accused him of taking a dive. I assume you don't buy into that?
No, not at all. No, I don't think he did. I think he expected, someone of my level of kind of how many fights I've had and obviously minimal background or whatever else. I don't think he expected me to be so sharp and so powerful. Like, I'm not massive and stuff, but it looks deceiving. I've been working on my power for a long time. I've knocked out all of my other opponents. Like, the power is there, and it can damage anyone and everyone. I've damaged all the opponents that I've been in there with, and sparring partners are testament to that as well, that I hit hard. So it's known. It's just because I'm not built massively like Anthony Joshua or whatever else, you may have some questions around it. But ultimately, my record speaks for itself, is that I get people out of there, and that's what I do.
Does it disappoint you that fellow professionals or retired professionals sort of have that opinion when you've put in what you thought was a good performance and you've got people basically saying that he just wanted out?
Half and half, because it's testament to me to nullify someone that much that they don't want to be there, if that is their opinion of it. That I did whatever to Richard, that he just decided that I can't see myself winning that. So if anything, if that is your view of it, that's the positive I'll take from it. And ultimately, you're not gonna, like, I'm not here to convince everyone. I'm not here to make sure everyone's on my side with it. I'm here to do my job, and my job was to turn up, get rid of Richard Lartey, and go home safe to my family, and that's what I did.
You've had a couple of fights recently. It looks like another one in January, so quite plenty of momentum. And right away, it was talked about the British title, which seems an obvious place to go, assuming it's vacated after this weekend. If you look at the available fighters, Nathan Gorman jumps out at me. Is that somewhere around that level you're looking at?
Yeah, I think obviously with Dave retiring, Nathan Gorman is now the obvious choice for that. Obviously, there's known difficulties with obviously mixing promotional companies and whatever else, but there's nothing that can't be overcome. It's just a small hurdle that will need to be discussed and obviously spoken about. But I think Nathan is the obvious choice. I don't really think there's any other British heavyweights really that are viable for it or kind of on the way towards it. So he'd be the only real option for it. But whatever comes with it, whatever comes. Like I know Nathan and his team and stuff, well, not his new team, but his old team he was with. I spent when he actually fought Daniel for the British. I was one of his sparring partners, so I was up there for 2 or 3 weeks with him. So we spent quite a bit of time together. I know him. He's a great guy. And a good boxer as well. So it'd be a great fight. And I know something he's definitely game for. I've seen tweets of him, of people kind of nudging towards it and stuff, and he said he's game for it. So if it does come off, if that's the next one, then that's great.
And you saw nothing, there was nothing inspiring that put you off that fight? Or was there anything that made you want it more? And did you see plenty there that you can exploit in an actual fight?
No, I believe in my own skills and my own abilities against anyone in the division. I take nothing from there's the obvious comparisons of his performance versus Lartey versus mine, which would obviously come, and I don't take anything from it. Like, our lives are different, circumstances are different, whatever's been going on behind the scenes are different. So I know Nathan, and he wasn't in his best shape for that fight, but I know if there was a fight with me, he would be in his best shape. He'd come and bring the best Nathan Gorman there is. So I don't take anything from it. So all I need to do is just train hard, do my thing, and believe in myself.
I suspect the answer to this is no, because you do share a manager, but would you ever fight Alan Babbage?
No. Babbage is like my brother. He's my guy, my through and through. And we all are. We're all there for each other to look out for each other. All we want is to see each other do better, win, move forward, progress, get bigger fights, bigger names, and do well for each other. And that comes for any of us, whether it's me, whether it's Dill, whether it's Richard, whether it's Alan, whoever's in the team. It's all we want to do is bring each other up. So us crossing paths, as much as I see so much talk about it on social media and whatever else of people trying to put us together, it's unlikely it would ever happen.
I suspect you might be bored of being sort of referred to as a former white-collar boxer, but I've been around that scene for a bit, and I've seen some absolutely dreadful fighters. You know, like people who just want to have a go, which is fair enough. I'm not criticising, but it's quite difficult actually to think of all those fights I've seen and to actually imagine many, if any, fighters turning pro for a start, and especially not having a record that you've got and going on to fight for honours. Was it simply a case that was your path rather than maybe an amateur, rather than, or tell me, how did it come about? How did you realise that actually white collar is not for me and I can do this properly?
It wasn't about. It was. When I got into it, my only decision is that I loved boxing. Whether it didn't matter whether I was a white collar fighter or I was an amateur fighter or whatever, I loved boxing. I loved watching it. I loved analysing it. I loved going to the gym, trying stuff, watching stuff, and then trying it the next day and figuring little moves out and little sequences and whatever else. I enjoyed all of it. So it was never a thing to me of, oh, I'm a white collar or an ABA or whatever. It was just, it's all boxing at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong, the separations in it are clear. Like you said yourself, some white collar fights are an absolute shambles. But then I've seen some great white collar fights between some great fighters and some that would rival some good amateur fights. So it's all there. I just think it's a lot of, like I've said a lot, to be honest, that white collar does get a lot of bad press. And I try as much as I can to be the guy to say, no, you know what, like you can, as long as you give yourself to the sport, as long as you want to, you have an actual interest in boxing, you actually want to do well, you respect the sport for what it is, then you can go as far as you want to go. And I try and be testament to that. I try and show that is it. That's why I'm not particularly fussed when people talk about my white collar background so much, because I want you to talk about it. I want you to know that that's where I came from, that it's doable, that it's perfectly doable, that you can come from there and still get to the levels that I'm at and fight with some of the people that I've fought. And it's all just down to if you want to commit yourself to the sport of boxing, no matter where you come from, what you did, or whatever. As long as you want to give yourself to the sport, you can make waves.
And how many fights did you have at that level?
I had 4 white collar fights.
So not even that many white collar fights.
No.
And did anyone take you to the side and say, you know what, maybe you should think about stepping up?
Yeah, it was a random kind of sequence of events. So there was a good white collar fighter who I fought on my second fight, and he was, I think, maybe about 10 fights in or something, and he was undefeated. And I think they were setting him up, but touting him to then, after a few more in white collar, turn him pro. And it happens that we fought, I beat him, I knocked him out in the first round, and then the attention of that kind of came to me of, actually, hang on, maybe he should be the one we're turning over instead of this other guy. And that was kind of how it went. And I got a call later the next day, in the evening, whatever else, from my trainer, from the guy that owns the gym, to say, there's someone who's been in contact and they're interested in you and turning you pro into a professional boxer. So and at the first it was funny because I was like, it was like a late Sunday night, I had work tomorrow. I was like, can you stop pulling my leg, give it a rest, I don't need this, I stop having it. And they were like, no, I'm genuinely serious. They want to speak to you, want to call you. And it just went from there, really, and that was kind of the real beginning and the start of the journey as a whole.
Was it quite difficult to then set targets? Because I guess, if you've had 4 fights at that level and then you're coming into this new world, have you had to keep reassessing where you are and where you think you can get to next?
I always tried to not look too far with it. I just tried to be thankful and appreciate for where I am and what I'm doing and the people I'm around and rubbing shoulders with and stuff like that. I always tried to the only thing I knew for a certain is that I am severely inexperienced compared to everyone else. So all I wanted to focus on and work on was getting better. So in every aspect of my boxing, of how much I understood boxing, how much I followed it, how much I knew about it, the details of it, what was going on in the divisions and who was signed to who, and all these little details and things, even down to the big change was going from 2-minute rounds to 3-minute rounds, from white collar to pro, and even figuring that out and going, hang on, I need to, I remember doing my first sparring session with Sam Sexton at the time, who was obviously a well-established pro, and he just battered me from left to right. And I only did 4 rounds, and because they were 3 minutes, it absolutely rocked me. So that it was then, okay, cool. So now we need to learn to do 4 rounds, 3 minutes comfortably. I need to be at a good level with that, and then cool, we've got there. So now we need to be able to do that, but at a good pace. Okay, cool. Now we've got there. Okay, so now we need to be able to do 6 rounds at whatever pace, but just get through it and be good. And then it was just about incremental steps, as opposed to, in 5 years, I want to be champion of this or whatever else. It was about focus on the really small details right now, all the little bits that will build you. And then once we feel like we're established enough, comfortable enough, then we can move.
And you never had any doubts at any point, where you had those sparring sessions that just left you thinking, what am I doing?
Not doubts, no, because I always, it was, don't get me wrong, there were hard days, and there were days where I had sparring sessions booked and I got up and I was like, I don't really want to get punched in for 15 minutes. It's not ideal. It's not what you want to do on your Sunday morning, but I knew it would all, as long as I stuck at it, it would all be worth it. As much as I did, there were certain days where I didn't want to go, I didn't want to do it. I always did, because I knew I'd always much prefer to go, get bad or whatever, but then at least still be happy with myself that I went. And even if I moved a millimetre forward towards my goal or getting better or whatever, at least I moved forward. At least I was better than I was yesterday. But if I didn't go at all, I knew me then just sitting there for the day, I'd be angry at myself all day, and it would weigh on me. So I always just pushed through. There was never a point where it was all too much, but there were bad days, but they come with everything.
Sure. and you're managed by Dillian White. How did that link up come about?
So that came through, again, it came through sparring. It came through just me putting so after like my first year or so, year and a bit in boxing, I really like put myself out there and almost, I think I got a bit of a reputation for being quite a usable guy, that I was always good for, because I was always game for sparring, because like I said, like I understood that there was a large gap between experience of me and these people at the moment. So whenever there was sparring opportunities, whoever wanted it, whenever they wanted it, I would do it. Like I would go and do whatever. So I think I got a bit of a reputation of being a good, usable, reliable guy that would always come and give it in sparring. And so the opportunity came to go spar with Dylan, and I did, and it just built from there really. But the thing is with Dill, like I noticed with him, where he, even at the point where I was in a contract and I was signed to someone else completely anyway, he still had an interest in me. He still wanted to know about how my training was going, how my fights were going, how I was feeling about so-and-so and whatever else. He had a genuine, like, just wanted to not make sure I was all right, but just see how things were going, make sure everything was going cool and whatever else. And I appreciated that from him, because at that point he was obviously well-renowned in boxing, big name and whatever else. But to see that he still had the time to just give me a little bit of his time to be like, like, message me out of nowhere and just say, you cool, is everything all good, like how's things, blah blah blah. It was nice. And then our relationship just went from there really. We became quite good friends, we got on well. Pretty much I was always used as a sparring partner for like whoever and whenever he was sparring, whenever he had opponents booked or whatever else. So I just, over the years, I just spent more and more time around him, and we built up a good relationship. And then to the point where the management contract I had at the moment they weren't like fulfilling their part. So I managed to separate myself from them, became a free agent. So I called Dylan one evening, but I didn't even I think at this point he only had Richard Lartey, where he was signed to, and that wasn't like a massive thing or even massively known really that he was managing fighters. Even I wasn't really too sure of how that all worked. But I called him on, not even to say, would you sign me? I called him to say, look, you've been in boxing for a long time. We're good friends, and you've always looked out for me. So I just called him to say, do you recommend any managers? Do you know any other managers? I had a bit of a bad time with so-and-so. Because you've been in the game a while, you know the names, you know who's good, who's not, whatever else. Could you just point me in a good direction? And we spoke for a bit, and we spoke about some names and some people, and it was a funny conversation, because we spoke for a bit about it, and we were getting somewhere, and then there was a pause, and there was a break in the conversation, some silence, and he just went, actually, hold on, wait there, and then just hung up on me, and I was like, okay, no worries then, cheers. And 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by, and then he calls me back and goes, actually, forget all of that. Forget everything I just said. How about you sign with me? I'll look after you. I'll manage you. I'll get you on the right path on big shows, and we'll move you forward, and I'll make sure you're well looked after. And true to his word, I always have been, and it's been the best choice of my life so far.
I guess the thing with Dylan is, it's not as if he's either coming to the end of his career or retired or bored or whatever. He's still his peak, essentially still has ambitions. So if he didn't have time or the energy or really want to manage you or Alan, he just wouldn't do it. So he's obviously he probably cares about you.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with if you ask anyone that signed to him, all anyone will say is that he genuinely cares. If you have an actual issue or whatever else, he's always there to help you with it. And if you need something or whatever, he's there for you. He'll extend everything he can to you. So even with training and stuff, he trains out in Portugal now. And at any point, if I want to go out there and train, there's a space for me. So that means I've got access to the facility he's got, the trainers he's got, the S&C coaches he's got. I have access to all of that stuff via him. At no point will he's not guarded and keeping it all to himself. He gives everything he can to whoever needs it. And I think that's what was always great about him, is that he was always, even though he was in such a position, such a big point in his life where obviously boxing and whatever else was massive for him, he still, because he comes from that small hall background of selling tickets and kind of grinding through and grafting, that he understands that boxing is a hard game early on. Like if you don't get a big promotional contract, if you're not signed to one of the big two in the UK, then it's a hard slog to get through, and he appreciates that. And I think he sees the work that, like me and Alan and stuff, all we were just people that wanted to better ourselves and do well, and he appreciates that, and then obviously gives us every opportunity to do so.
And is it just convenient that you fight on the same card, or are you actually contracted to always be on his undercard? No.
It's like I can fight on whatever cards I want. It's just always good to be on the same card, because it's nice for us as well to all be in camp together. It builds that kind of team mentality, that camaraderie between us, that we all train together, we all spar together, we build towards that same night together. But it's not mandatory. I don't have to. I fought on cards without him. I fought on cards with him. Like I say, at the weekend obviously was supposed to be his card, but it wasn't. So we still fought and whatever else. So it's not a set in stone thing. It's just, if anything, they're my favourite ones, are when we're all together and we're all building towards the same goal on the same night. It's nice to check in on everyone when they're in camp, or do camp side by side and all get to the same goal.
Will you head back to Portugal ahead of January, or will you train over here?
It's something I've been playing with, possibly. Yeah, possibly. It's always good to get away, especially with everything going on at the moment. It's always good, but well, I'm just going to kind of play it by ear, really. Like I say, it's only a plane ticket away. It's easy enough to go to. There's always a space. So if I want to, I can, but I'll see how I feel about it all.
And I assume you're back in Dillian to win his rematch.
Yeah, of course. He was in complete control of the first fight. But boxing's boxing. Sometimes you make errors and they can be very costly, and that was all you saw that happened. But he'll wrong the right second time around, and he'll do what he needs to do.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to go to the gym. Now you've convinced me that I can become a professional heavyweight boxer. And thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Fabio, and wish you all the best in January and, of course, beyond.